everybody. Welcome to BO Boys for Friday, February 10th. F it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. And Clayton, I mean, we don't get to email right up top, but I think today for this episode, we should just get to one email because we got an email that specifically takes to task the fact that you no longer have been dropping the F-bomb in our openings anymore. And we had someone write us about this. So I'm going to get right to that email. It is from wannabe oh boy Paul in Auckland, New Zealand, all the way from across the pond in New Zealand, the land down under, where they bring the thunder. Paul says this. He says, I quote, I'm writing to you to say that I miss Clayton dropping the F-bomb 5 seconds into every podcast. Seeing as you didn't mention Puss in Boots last episode other than the top 5 plow, I think we could say you've officially lost a few kids still listening. This is especially true as you filled the episode with details of octogenarian actors they would have never heard of and chat about ethical dilemmas in underperforming philosophical horror movies. Bring back the F-bomb. Many thanks from Wannabe Paul in Auckland, New Zealand. End quote. So, Clayton, people are missing the F-bomb up top. They're missing that you don't spell it all out when you now say F it. We're doing it live. So something to keep in consideration for the start of the next episode. I mean, how do you feel about that? People are missing the full profanity.
Well, I mean, I do think eventually we can go back to full profanity, but Puss in Boots is not finished. When it is finished and we have divvied up the millions for Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, then I can go back to saying the full F word.
Okay. So for now, we'll continue to F it, do it live, and keep it clean for the kids. So wannabe oh boy Paul from New Zealand, just deal with it a little longer. Last Wish is still going strong, but nothing lasts forever. Eventually, Last Wish will be gone. The kids will be gone. And Clayton could go back to the proper full profanity to start every episode. It will happen eventually. It is time for us to preview this upcoming weekend, the weekend of Friday, February 10th, a.k.a. Super Bowl weekend, a.k.a. Valentine's weekend 2023. It's a double whammy this year.
Valentine's and Galentine's.
Mm-hmm.
And Bro-Valentine's.
Okay.
Still working on it.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you think this is a weekend where the bros have to get together to also see a movie? It seems, listen, Super Bowl's for everyone, but I think it's a little overkill if this weekend the bros are saying, hey, we got to get the boys together to see a movie ahead of the Super Bowl. I feel like it's just the Super Bowl.
Well, it's the 21st century, Pat.
Of course.
I think we can throw away all the old things that we thought were, how society acted, how we were expected, the mores.
Right.
We can throw those to the side. So I do think there can be groups of men going out and seeing films this weekend.
Of course. No, that's true. So then in that case, there's a lot going on this weekend. The big new release, the big one, is Magic Mike's Last Dance, the third in the series, the third in the currently a trilogy. I could definitely see this being a series that we get more of again someday. But for right now, this is the third one, Channing Tatum's male stripper opus. And this was originally supposed to be an HBO Max original movie. This was going to be a straight to streamer. And that's how it was produced. That's what it was ordered for. It was made under the auspices of being only an HBO release. And then David Zaslav, he came over, took over. He ended production on a bunch of stuff, but he did take some movie projects and take them from being HBO only to being theatrical releases. And at the time, we were totally in favor of it. He was taking House Party. He was taking Evil Dead Rise. He was taking Magic Mike 3, putting him in the movie theaters. And we thought, oh, what a great initiative from the Zaz. He's doing it right. But then we had the House Party release, and that release was not a full wide, super wide release. It was what, 1,500 screens the most?
Something like that, yes.
And I think even with that, we said, okay, it's House Party. It's a kind of cultish franchise from the 90s. This isn't a gigantic property. So we could sort of kind of see why they weren't doing a big, 3,000 screen release with it. They were going a little smaller. Surely Magic Mike 3, now that is a big wide release. And now we're on the eve of Magic Mike coming out. We've got a theater count, and they're doing the same thing. So, Clayton, I'm going to let you rant a little because you were coming in hot on this subject before we came in. How are you feeling about Magic Mike not quite getting the girthy release that everybody wanted?
Yes, these beefy meat men deserve a wider release. This is opening in 1,600 theaters.
Oh, boy.
Just to give you a little bit of perspective there, the Titanic 25th anniversary is opening in 2,464 theaters.
Oh, my God.
A movie that's 25 years old. Now, here's the thing about Zaslav, is that it's great to put movies in theaters. It's great. It's great. You should do it. But the ad spend needs to be there.
Yes.
This movie, I saw one trailer for this movie, one trailer in the theater, and I see a lot of movies. So if it's not even in trailers in the theater, that's bad. I haven't seen any commercials on TV that I mean, maybe these are networks that I'm not watching, but regular television, I've not seen any ads for this. And I only know this movie's coming out because it's going to be a Valentine's Day release, right? It's going to be a Super Bowl counter programming. But I just don't know if a wide enough number of people know this movie is coming out this weekend. Because the difference between what Zaslav is doing when he's saving these films from HBO Max and Brian Robbins is doing at Paramount with something like 80 for Brady, a movie that was saved from Paramount Plus, is that Paramount Plus got their ad muscle behind that. Everywhere I turned, it was 80 for Brady. I couldn't pick up a quarter without seeing something on the street spray painted 80 for Brady. There was sky. I mean, I looked in the sky. I was trying to look up, and there's skywriters 80 for Brady.
Yep.
Right? Of course, I'm being hyperbolic, but it felt that way.
It felt like it was
escape
everywhere.
80 for Brady. Every movie we saw in the last few months, what trailer did we see? And think was Brady. Book Club 2, and then realized it was 80 for Brady. We saw that trailer so many times that we were able to overcome the idea that it was Book Club 2, and then we got it in our heads that it was 80 for Brady.
Yes,
right?
Yes. We saw so much 80 for Brady marketing that by the time the Book Club 2 trailer does finally drop, my first thought then is going to be, oh, it's a sequel to 80 for Brady.
Yeah.
That's how ubiquitous 80 for Brady has become compared to Matt. I totally agree. I have not in the real world encountered any promotion for Magic Mike's Last Dance. I have seen the trailer in the movie theaters, but I am a high octane moviegoer. I see so many movies in theaters that I can't but help but have seen it. And it really is. This is a movie where the promotion is not existent, and it's just for the super fans. It's just for the people who heard about this from when the Deadline article dropped 8 months ago that this was coming out in movie theaters. That was the extent of the promotion for Magic Mike's Last Dance, is when the trade coverage told us, oh, they're not doing it on HBO, they're putting it in movie theaters. And that was, 8 to 12 months ago. And to me, that doesn't really cut it for crossing over into the mainstream consciousness.
And you've got a guy, Channing Tatum, who
Mm-hmm.
is hot right now. He's on a hot streak. He
Yes.
had Dog,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Then, and that was a movie that we knew was coming out. We saw it everywhere.
Yes. Yes.
Then then it was The Lost City,
Yes.
and did over 100 mil.
Yes. Over
Huge.
100 mil domestic. Dog did what? That dog run was 40 plus mil domestic when all was
Oh,
said and
more than
done.
that. More than that.
It's and he's Mr. February, because you look at the history of Channing Tatum. He's had Dog in February. He's had the Dear John movie in February. I know there's another big February movie that Channing Tatum has had. He is a guy who specifically owns this usually down month. He had The Vow in 2012.
Mhm.
Channing Tatum, The Vow opened to 41 million. In 2010, Dear John opened to 30 million. Last year, Dog opened to 15 million.
Dude,
Mr. February, he's
61
got a
million for
uh,
Dog.
61 million in that dog run. I mean, this is a guy who is at his peak in his peak month, and the third movie in a popular IP. That's what Magic Mike is. It is IP,
Mhm.
and Warner Brothers still will not promote it. They still will not put it in a full 3,000 plus movie theater. So the scuttlebutt we're hearing, that the word going around why Warner Brothers is keeping the number of screens low is to avoid triggering certain payouts to profit participants, because if the movie theater count goes above a certain number, then they've got to pay more to Channing Tatum, I would guess Steven Soderbergh, maybe Salma Hayek. That is penny pinching to at its highest level. And that is frankly disgusting, because you are messing with the box office potential of what could have been a huge hit, but by not marketing it, by only putting it in 1,500 theaters, Warner Brothers and David Zaslav
Yep.
is going to make the Magic Mike franchise look like a failure when it could have been so much more. So
Well,
much more. That is what the penny pinching is going to do, is to make Magic Mike's Last Dance. And we're not preemptively making excuses, but it is just the way it is. Zaslav is going to make Magic Mike look like a goddamn failure, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
well, do you remember when Warner Brothers was the studio that was artist friendly,
Mm-hmm.
where it was the home of Clint,
Yep.
where it
Yep.
was Ben Affleck got to direct these movies.
Yes.
You got our boy Bradley Cooper,
Yep.
who,
Yep.
was able to do what he needed to do. You've got the Joker director, your boy
Todd,
from way back,
not my
yeah,
boy from way back,
your
but
boy from
Todd
way back,
Phillips. Yes, he had
able
a
to
home
do.
at Warner Brothers.
He had a
Yes.
home at Warner Brothers, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
our our dead horse that we
Yes.
love to beat.
Yes.
What was his name again?
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher
That
Nolan.
that is what Warner Brothers is doing. It's taking these once gigantic filmmakers and making their names hard to remember, because Warner Brothers has been pushing talent off the lot since Zaslav, and I feel like you're going to end up putting Channing Tatum in that position where he's going to be someone who, after this experience, is probably going to feel like Warner Brothers is not artist friendly.
But
They
listen,
don't.
it's true. But we know what Zaslav is there to do, right? We know this guy is not the guy forever. This is a guy that's going to come in and cut fat, what they perceive to be fat, cut it to the bone, and then let him go with the golden parachute and bring somebody else in and say, listen, we're friendly again. That's over. That's over. I think that's what's going to happen.
I mean, you would hope
he
so,
is the
but
bad guy. This
this
guy's
is
the
not
bad guy.
this is not fat though. I mean, you look at Magic Mike, you look at
No,
Channing Tatum, not an ounce of fat there, not an
absolutely.
ounce of fat on that poster, on any of the anything to do with Magic Mike. There is no fat to be cut, and yet they somehow cut here, and I don't understand it.
Here's the thing. They took a bath when they did day and date all year during the pandemic.
Right,
Because
2022, yes.
they had to pay out the bum
Yes, yes.
to creatives because of that release. I mean, you got someone, and I don't know this for a fact, but Denzel had that movie,
Right, the little things,
the
yeah.
little things, and Denzel, I'm sure, gets a little taste of that back end. He's got to, right? A little taste of something.
Right.
When a movie goes over 50 or whatever it is. And when he wasn't getting that, I mean, they had to pay him it even if it wasn't going to do anything, right? I mean, they paid out everybody for Dune. They paid out Wonder Woman 1984.
Right.
They were paying out the wazoo. And now they brought in Zaslav, and he is doing these things. Like you said, he's keeping it under this certain point so he doesn't have to pay these people. I think it's bad for business, but what I'm saying is that it's all strategic. This guy's the bad guy.
I don't
guy
even know.
is going to be here for until they can right the ship, and then the bad guy's going to go away, and Mr. Nice Guy's going to come in.
I don't know if it's that simple. I don't know if it's that simple, because a big part of the Warner Brothers problem was the merger with Discovery. Discovery was a company much smaller than Warner Brothers, somehow bought it basically by borrowing. And then when they finally owned the thing, they had nowhere near enough money to run it. So Warner Brothers Discovery is a complete mess of a company now. They are just fully in debt. They've been borrowing money all over town, and they no longer have the money to do proper things like release a Magic Mike movie. I don't think it is just a case of Zaslav playing a bad guy. I think this is a case of Warner Brothers Discovery is in such a financial disaster.
Yeah, and that's what
they are, and I don't think you get your way out of it by skimping on Magic Mike TV commercials. I think this is a bigger problem that might not just go away when they just fire David Zaslav and bring in a quote unquote Mr. Nice Guy. This whole studio could be in major financial trouble, because if you owe money all over town, eventually that money comes due, and eventually the crowbars come out and the baseball bats come out and people get hurt, and then there's really no money to buy TV ads. Then there's really no money to put anything in any amount of movie theaters, and everyone's got their legs broken. And I think that's what Warner Brothers Discovery could be on their way to, is getting their legs broken, getting their heads bashed in, and then we're in for a rough slate of Warner Brothers theatrical releases.
Well, but I think we're agreeing, though, in the sense that Zaslav was brought in to do these things, right?
He was there. He's the one who pulled this off. He was the Discovery head who pulled this off. So he wasn't brought in. He's the one who's dealing with the mess that he made. He's the guy who borrowed the money.
But what I'm saying is that the guy before him was the guy who said, let's do day and date all year round, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he was gone and Zaslav was in. And with him, the idea was cost cutting, right?
Right. But again, it's not I think it's so much more than just them dealing with the day and date stuff from the years before.
I'm simplifying it, but what I'm saying is that wasn't his mess. He didn't create that mess.
Sure.
That was a mess that needed to be cleaned up. And Zaslav is a guy that was brought in to clean it up. Unless I'm completely wrong here, and you can say I'm completely wrong.
I feel like you're completely wrong.
How am I completely wrong?
Because David Zaslav was not brought in to do anything. He is the one who did the doing. He's not a guy who was hired to fix a previous mess. He's a mess maker.
Okay. So hold on.
So I think we're getting a little off track anyway. Magic Mike, Last Dance, it's getting a small release. Small-ish, much smaller than it should have gotten. And now that all that said, this is a movie with a fan base. This is a movie with a fan base that I think the super fans are aware that it's coming out. So even with this small release, even with this small marketing, almost non-existent marketing push from Warner Brothers, is there a chance that Magic Mike's Last Dance still overperforms all of those difficulties and has a good opening weekend? Because again, it's IP, it's a fan base that's there. Can it do better than the push that it's receiving from Warner Brothers?
Well, I mean, I don't know if people know it's there. That's the problem, right? Number one, Magic Mike number one was a huge hit. Magic Mike XXL was a pretty large disappointment. In 2015, it opened to $12.8 million
Mm-hmm.
and then legged out to 66. But when you look at
Mm-hmm.
the original was kind of a phenomenon,
Right.
right? I mean, it opened in 2012 in June.
Mm-hmm.
It opened to $39.1 million and it legged out to 113,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, listen, Channing Tatum is big and resurging, but is there juice left in this IP? As much as, I mean, because XL, I mean, to go from almost 40 million to 12 in an opening
Mm-hmm.
and only 4 years apart, I mean, that now is going to be what, 7 years since the last one. I don't.
It'll mm-hmm.
I mean, the people who went to the first one are now officially middle age.
Right, but they may need this more than ever.
They
You know
may
that
need this more. I mean, it might be a Scream 4 situation with XXL, where it
mm,
wasn't long enough between the two of them for
could
people
be.
to be into it as much as maybe you're saying they're into it now.
Well, here's what I'll say about from what I know about this franchise. You bring up the Scream franchise. Scream 4 was a movie that came after Scream 3, which most people did not like. And then it suffered, I think, at the box office because the last Scream movie at that point had been the one that people liked the least in the series.
Mm-hmm.
With the Magic Mike franchise, Magic Mike 2, Magic Mike XXL had definitely a box office downturn from the first one, but the fans of the series have really come to love that second movie. The second movie is by many fans of the series regarded as a more fun, almost better, more beloved movie than the first one. And again, the second one had a big box office downturn, but fans of the series really like the last Magic Mike they saw. So I don't think we're going to have that issue of people turning on the franchise. The franchise to the fans is still very strong. And I think this is one of those movies that has had a nice life since the theatrical, where people have really watched that second one over and over and over again. I do think the fan enthusiasm is still with this series. They haven't had a bad Magic Mike movie for the fans.
So, Box Office Pro is saying anywhere from 10 to 15. Their call is 12.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like, especially for opening weekend, it's going to overperform. You know,
Yeah, I just, I don't think we've had anything really overperform in a while. I mean, maybe we had 80 for Brady overperform,
oh, I
but
think we've
not,
definitely had 80 for Brady
but I
overperform.
don't think from the tracking, we were low on that movie because the tracking was the tracking there.
Mm-hmm.
The tracking, it was within its tracking, that movie opening. It did not bust out of the tracking in a big way. We were just very low on it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see this. I don't see this being a movie that's going to overperform and gets a 20 million or anything like that. But I do think it's a movie that, because of the lack of promotion and the low theater count, is going to be mostly targeted at the super fans. And I think this is a series where the super fans are excited for this. The super fans are still on board with the series. They really liked the last one. Channing Tatum is still exactly looking and exactly like what the super fans want him to. He's still a major star. And this is the type of movie that there's a lot of opening weekend parties around the Magic Mike. A lot of like, hey, I've already heard of several different cases where people are renting out full theaters, to go see this with their friends, and that there's big group ticket buying groups going to opening weekend. So I do think this is an opening weekend party movie for the fans, and it could do 14 or 15, I think.
Okay.
I think it's a slight overperform possible. I do think then after that weekend and the fans have seen it and nobody else really knows it exists,
Yeah.
then it could drop off sharply. But I do think that it'll slightly overperform the tracking because the fans are going to go opening weekend.
I'm going to go 10 on this. I'm going to go double digit. I want it to be double digits. We need it to be double digits
Mm-hmm.
because we can't have a single digit number one. We don't want that.
That would break
Not
the
this time of
streak.
year. Can't break the streak. So I'm going to go 10 here. I'm very, very, uh, what is that, bearish
Okay.
on this. And it's because of that promotion. Dude, it's people just don't know.
People don't know. I
And it's
agree.
and it's not like magazines are big like they used to be, and like he may be doing articles for Vogue online and stuff, but it's like people just skim past that on their in their news feed. It's just like not the same as I go to the newsstand and I see Channing on every cover. It's like people
Right.
don't that's not how life works anymore. So
Right.
even if he's on every cover of every magazine, who the hell would know?
Right. Right. And he probably isn't, because even that kind of stuff is in some ways paid for, and Warner Brothers isn't spending the money
True.
to do even that kind of paid PR push. They're just not spending on this. Listen, I think the thing that we're going to end up talking about on Monday, no matter what this opening number is that because of what Warner Brothers did, they tanked what could have been a breakout opening weekend. Because even though Magic Mike XXL was much lower than the first one, and the first one's a phenomenon, no
Yes.
sequel was ever going to do what the first one did. It was just
Absolutely.
a unique phenomenon. This third one could have been bigger because Channing Tatum as a star is in a resurgent period. And they could have had a movie here that would have played off of the fact that he just had The Lost City last year, a rom-com adventure movie that did over 100 million domestic, open to 25 or 30 million. And that could have led to this one being bigger than the second one, but they botched the opening. And now it just makes you feel like, can Warner Brothers release movies?
They
I mean,
have
their
it. I
last
mean, what was
DC
their
movie was a bomb, was Black Adam.
they released what? Elvis this summer, and
Right,
then House Party, which was a disaster. This
right.
movie, which is going to be not necessarily a disaster, but an underperformer for what it could be. Like, absolutely, Pat, if you're telling me this movie gets the same amount of promotion as 80 for Brady, this
Right,
thing's going to make more money than 80 for Brady.
right, right, right,
Because we have a lack of bankable stars
right,
to go see, and when a bankable star has a movie, people will go look at Sandy Bullock, look at Brad Pitt, look at
right,
Denzel Washington.
right, right. I saw a stat that this coming weekend, the Gerard Butler film Plane
Mm-hmm.
will be in more movie theaters than the opening weekend of Magic Mike's Last Dance. All right,
Listen,
and
we
this
love
is
Gary Butler.
the fifth weekend coming up of Gerard Butler's Plane. Weekend 5 is going to have more screens than opening weekend of Magic Mike 3. That is a complete failure on the part of Zaslav and Warner Brothers. That is a disgrace.
Yeah, it's a disgrace. I mean, they're like you said, they're in a lot of trouble. Now, let's talk about somebody that's not in a lot of trouble.
No.
Everything's coming up, Jimmy Cameron.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a Titanic 25th anniversary release. So, according to many sources, this is a new 4K remaster, I guess.
Okay.
Fixed it up again. And also a new 3D rendering, I guess.
Okay.
So that basically, that's all technical terms for this thing has been spiffied up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, 4K remaster and another 3D conversion. So the last major re-release for this film was 2012,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Easter weekend, and it came in at 17.3,
Wow.
right? And then the next
Wow.
weekend, $11 million.
Wow.
Now, it was released in a smaller number of theaters a few years later after that, and it made about a $500,000, which is still great, but it was only in 800 some theaters. No one's expecting Titanic to do 17 here.
Mm-hmm.
But earlier, last September, I guess it would have been, Avatar, the original Avatar, got re released and it opened to 10.5.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more so where people are seeing this. So, you know, Magic Mike has some competition here with
Mm-hmm.
Titanic because
Mm-hmm.
this is an all-time movie. I mean, it's one of the biggest earners of all time. We know this. And it's a perennial. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
kids there's a certain age, with when it comes to music, there's a certain age where every kid has heard Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon,
Every
right?
kid. Every kid.
And there's a point where every kid has seen Titanic. Like
Yes.
these things are, you know, those kind of perennial cultural things that last.
Right. Right.
And so we saw this in real life when we went to a film around that Avatar re release. It was late at night. We saw a bunch of teens and tweens running around,
Mm-hmm.
making a nuisance of themselves. And what were they going to see? Avatar.
Yes.
Because they didn't get to see Avatar originally in the theater when they were younger. So now
Mm-hmm.
they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole generation of and I think it's called Gen Z
Oh, wow.
who didn't
Last
have an
one.
opportunity to see Titanic, a
Mm-hmm.
seminal piece of filmmaking for
Mm-hmm.
every generation in the theater. They haven't been able to see it. They haven't been able to see it in PLFs. And
Mm.
now they're going to get that chance. And I think they're going to take it.
Yeah, with the Avatar re-release earlier in the year, that one is also a little bit of an anomaly because it was part of the enthusiasm for Avatar 2 coming out a few months later. Obviously, we don't have
Absolutely.
a Titanic sequel coming up that people have to, I got to see the last one, so I'm up to date before the sequel comes out. Revenge of Rose comes out in a few months. There's not that sweeping Titanic up. I'm just looking at when the last big Titanic re-release happened in April of 2012, and I'll throw a little quiz at you. Do you know what the big movie was that also came out that weekend, the debut? And it was the fourth film in a series. I'll give you that hint.
The
Came out.
fourth film in a
Yep,
series.
it was the opening weekend debuting against the re-release of Titanic in April of 2012. So this is a movie that came out almost 11 years ago.
Is it a horror franchise?
It is not a horror franchise, but it's a started as a teen-based franchise. I'll tell you that.
Started as a teen-based franchise. Oh, is it Scream?
No, the
No.
answer is it is American Reunion, the fourth proper American
Oh,
Pie film. The fourth movie in that series came out all the way back in 2012, American Reunion.
that's
And that
crazy.
that film that we all look back on as a bomb, the one that's ended the franchise,
Hmm.
even that movie debuted to $21 million, looked at as a disappointment back then.
But then the
And
drops were huge on
the
that.
the drops were massive. It only made 56 million total off of that $21 million debut. But that is what Titanic went against when it was re-released in April of 2012. So again, coming out against the long-awaited, sequel of a IP, Titanic once again coming out in a reissue against a late series sequel.
Wow.
So little something for the wannabe boys, wannabe girls, wannabe people.
People.
Yeah, I
What are
mean,
you feeling on this, Pat? Because
it's
Box Office Pro is saying 6 to 11, and they're going with 8.2. They think it's going to be the #2 movie in America.
I'm not feeling a big overperforming here for Titanic.
Okay.
I mean, I think that yeah, there will be some amount of people who are going to take the opportunity to finally see it in a movie theater. That definitely is an experience. I mean, it's getting what, 3,000 screens or over 2,000 screens. It's getting a much wider release than Magic Mike
It's
Last
getting
Dance.
2,464. That is
Yeah.
according to the numbers.
Yeah. But I don't feel like this is going to be some kind of big overperformer. It's Valentine's weekend, but I do think it's going up against a good Valentine's movie in Magic Mike, a new movie. So I think that will still be more of the date choice
Mm-hmm.
for couples, including for older couples who are fans of the original, or not the original Titanic, but are Titanic fans. I think they'll.
Are there still people alive that would be fans of the actual boat, the Titanic? Like waved goodbye to it, and so they have some sort of sentimental
I mean, if they
relationship.
if they do, you gotta get them to this re-release.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta whatever condition they're in, you gotta drag them out there. I'm not feeling a big overperforming for it. I don't think that Avatar, even though it's a big success for Jim Cameron, I don't think that really gives this any kind of big bump.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Cameron being at the top again really does much for this. I'm on the lower side. I feel like around 7 million or that 8 million makes sense. I don't think this is going to get to 10 million.
No. Well, here's the question.
Yes.
Do you think this beats out 80 for Brady? Because here's the thing we got to think about.
Okay.
80 for Brady has the most screens of any film this weekend.
Okay.
So nearly 4,000, 3,912.
Mm-hmm.
But we must remember that there is a lower price point for those
Mm-hmm.
tickets. So even if more people were to see 80 for Brady
Mm-hmm.
than Titanic, they would still fall short.
Mm-hmm.
Those lovely ladies of 80s for Brady's
Mm-hmm.
would fall short because of those ticket prices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, with that in mind, Pat, do you think that the Titanic re-release will make more than 80 for Brady?
I think it will, because
Okay.
80 for Brady made 12 million last weekend, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it will drop. Well, you know what?
If it
No, I
drops
guess
50,
not.
it's like 6 or
Yeah,
7.
so then I take that back. I think 80 for Brady is going to beat Titanic.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it will. And it'll be close. it'll be a squeaker. But yeah, I guess 80 for Brady could make around 8, and Titanic makes around 7. That's right around where I see it. And I think that's another movie that eats in a little bit to the Titanic BO this weekend, because I think that crowd, if there was no 80 for Brady, some of those people might have said, let's go see Titanic. But I think a lot of those people are going to make the choice to see the new movie they haven't seen before, 80 for Brady. And
Mm-hmm.
do you think the Super Bowl, this being Super Bowl weekend, 80 for Brady is a football movie? Does that have much of an effect? Or people are just going to see it Friday or Saturday? Or also they're going to see it Sunday because it's not the football aspect that's really drawing
Yeah,
people?
I think the thing that really drew people to that film was the camaraderie
Yeah.
of women.
Yeah.
I think that's what brought book club together because that movie wasn't about books.
No.
The only
No.
thing that brought them together was the idea that they were reading 50 Shades of Grey, but it really was them interacting. I mean,
Right.
this kind of, we're always drawn to these sort of movies where it's uh, friends till the end.
Okay.
Those kind of films really resonate with people, and it makes you want to bring your friends to those. So I think that's the strength: is a bunch of funny women hanging out, having a good time. And so I think, maybe there's a little bit festive, like let's go see 80 for Brady and then we're all getting together for the Super Bowl. But I do think, yeah, I mean, I think all these people are still going to just watch the big game.
Right. Right. So do we think that the big game has any kind of a real of these movies, the big movies this weekend, which one does the big game have the most negative effect on? 80 for Brady, Titanic re-release, Magic Mike's Last Dance. To me, the big game really doesn't affect any of them in any way. If this was the opening weekend of Plane, I would say that's a
Yeah,
that's a
then
rough
Plane is
go.
effed.
But I think that all of these movies could do pretty fine Sunday business against the big game.
You know what might be the one that maybe Knock because of the young male audience.
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk real quick before we get into just listing our final predictions. Knock at the Cabin, disappointed last weekend. It's opening weekend. Since we have last been on air, I have seen Knock at the Cabin,
Mm-hmm.
and having seen it, I fully understand why this movie underperformed. It just was a downer movie. There's not any big twist. It's not really a horror movie. And I can understand why not only did it underperform, but it's been falling off a cliff in the weekdays.
Yeah,
It
that's
was number
rough.
one last weekend, but 80 for Brady since Monday has been the number one movie every day during the weekdays. So, uh, yeah, I think that disappointing audience, word of mouth, plus the fact that it was male skewing and now it's going against the big game, Knock at the Cabin is going to have a huge drop in this second weekend. Huge drop. But
Yes.
listen, Dave Bautista was great in the movie, acquitted himself well, showed he could be a dramatic lead. So it's still a win for him for his career. But the film was not really the genre, fun genre movie that I think maybe audiences were hoping it would be.
Mm-hmm. Now, Pat, do you want to do your top five? Are you ready, or do you want me to go?
Why don't you take this one first? Yeah.
Love it, love it. Okay, so number one, Magic Mike's Last Dance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying 10.
Okay.
Cool 10 spot.
Okay.
Number two, you know, I'm going for it. I'm saying 80 for Brady.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to make around 7.
Okay.
And then I think Titanic re-release is number 3. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's going to make 6 something
Okay.
in the high 6s. Right nestled next to it, like it's going to be in the domestic and international worldwide charts, Avatar: The Way of Water is going to be number 4.
Mm.
And number 5, The Puss in the Boots is going to be number 5 this weekend with another Small drop. It's continuing on. Let's see if it can actually do a Greatest Showman by hitting 175. We'll see if it does it. It's looking like it could do it. That's my top 5.
Well, my top five is going to be very similar with one switch. So number one, Magic Mike, Last Dance. I think a little higher than you're saying. I think it could do 13, maybe
Okay, unlucky
14.
13.
Number two, I agree. It's 80 for Brady. Number three, Titanic re-release. But I'm going number four. I think that Puss in Boots is going to overtake Avatar Way of Water and get to number four. Avatar Way of Water is going to be number five. I think Avatar Way of Water is actually the movie that could get hurt the most by the big game. I do think that audience, and of course, that's an audience, it's everybody. Everyone's going to see Avatar. It's one of the biggest movies of all time. But if you were going with the idea that a younger audience and a more male audience is the strongest hold of Avatar Way of Water, and that audience is probably the most focused on not just watching the big game, but preparing for the big game, betting on the big game, looking for offshore gambling sites to bet on prop bets for the big game. Basically the whole, even though the big game is only 3 to 5 hours, they've got to plan the whole weekend around the big game. So I think these young male fans are the ones who will do big game related activities this weekend and not go to the movie theaters. And therefore that hurts Avatar Way of Water the most. And therefore it drops to number 5. That's my prediction. Meanwhile, the kids, the rats, they'll check the scores of the big game on their smartphones. They're not going to really care. They're going to want to see this Puss in Boots in the theater.
Nice. Now, Pat,
yes,
I don't think we have time to get into this now, but I do want to put a pin in this topic, and I do think we need to talk about it.
Okay.
It is the AMC pricing plan that they're going to be rolling out soon here in New York City.
Okay.
For different seating costing different amount of money. It's called the Sightline Initiative, and it kicks off this Friday.
Wow.
At AMC locations in New York, Chicago, and Kansas City.
Yeah, that may have to be, that's a big topic. It's definitely getting a lot of debate on the internet, as everything does. But this in particular, I think, is getting a lot of debate.
Do we bonus episode this?
I think we may have to at some point do a bonus and just talk about AMC Sightline on its own. I think it deserves a focused discussion.
Now, this weekend you will not be seeing a movie, though, will you, Pat? You have family get-togethers.
Ahead of the family get-togethers tomorrow night, or when this drops tonight, basically Friday night, I am seeing Magic Mike's Last Dance in theater. Tickets are bought with my wife,
of course. Okay.
Yes, and several other people. We didn't rent a theater, but we are a group.
Wow,
we are a group going to see it. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Not including me.
Not including you. No.
Okay.
No, it is several people, multiple people, large enough to be considered a group. But no, you are not in that group.
I'm not invited.
Not as far as I know.
Okay.
I could look into if an invite has been sent to you, but as far as I know,
I think you would know if the invite had been sent to me,
right,
or extended,
right.
And I can tell you it has not been extended.
Okay, great. So then I won't look into it.
You don't need to. No need to.
No need to look into it. Okay, good to know. Good to know for sure.
I also think that this weekend I should do some boots on the ground investigation with this AMC, because I am an A-lister.
Yes.
And according to articles, I am going to have my pick of seats with no change in price. So if I get the premium seats, then I will not have to pay extra.
Right,
which
right.
is another reason to get A-list, the best service there is out there subscription-wise for films.
Yes.
100%. But I do think I need to do some boots on the ground and figure this out so that I can really get an understanding of how this is going to work in the real world before I weigh in, because we won't get into it. We'll get into this on the bonus episode, but I was hot. I was
Okay.
hot.
Okay.
I was texting you, remember? Because I don't tweet because I'm
Right.
smart.
Right, right.
Because if I was somebody who tweeted, I would have replied to a gentleman who is pretty famous,
Okay.
who spoke out about this,
Okay.
and they know who they are.
Right.
The
Definitely
audience knows who they
listening.
are,
Yeah.
right? And I was pretty heated,
Okay.
but you know, texted you with some vitriol, not
Right.
aimed at you. Then
Right.
I calmed down, and I'm ready to
Right.
have a actual discussion and really try to come to terms with what's going on here.
All right. So we'll get to that sometime in the next week or so. A
Yes.
focused discussion on AMC Sightline. And yeah, you should definitely do some boots on the ground reporting this weekend. Use your AMC app to go see a film. I would say perhaps Friday night you could do that because
Because I don't have, because I'm not invited to whatever you're doing.
right. You managed to find that out, so now I know
I
the
know for
invitation
sure
was
I'm
not
free.
sent.
I know for sure
Yeah.
I'm free because I'm not invited to this get together, this filming outing.
Right. Which is as far as I know. Again, I haven't looked into it, but as far as I
I
know,
think
you're
as
not, you're
far as you
free.
know is all there is to know, which is
Right.
that I was never invited and I will not subsequently be invited.
Great. So that means you're free to do your boots on the ground reporting.
Listen, that's great. Best case scenario.
It all worked out. So yeah, we'll have to talk about that. I think before we go, just real quick, let's just take a look at another email that we received this past week. So from Wannabeo person Chris here, we got a email subject line parents mutiny. So the email reads, "What's up, guys? First time, long time. I had this week's episode with my dad in the car, and let's just say he took issue with the older people discussing concessions. He says your perception of older adults needs revising while he munches on his popcorn and soda. Maybe since all these kids are listening because of Puss in Boots, you should also be aware of older people. My parents are early 70s, and their favorite movies lately have been Ticket to Paradise, A Man Called Otto, and The Fabelmans. Big Spielberg fans. It's also great seeing the older crowd back in theaters because I wasn't sure it would happen again. You guys are the best." That's from Chris. So basically, we were a little, I guess Chris's dad is saying we were a little hard on the older folks when we were discussing 80 for Brady last week. You know, we basically made the case that the 80 for Brady concession sales were probably not strong because we
Yes.
theorized that older audiences bring in their Werther's originals, or they are worried about the effects that, you know, sodas and popcorn could have on their dentures or could have on their, you know, how popcorn mixes with their medications. So we made the
Yes.
case that the 80 for Brady audience was not buying concessions. And that rubbed Chris's dad the wrong way when he was listening in the car. And I'm not going to apologize because we don't apologize, but we do take in new information.
Yes.
And if
Pivot.
Chris, we pivot, and if Chris's dad is saying that he does indeed go to the movie theaters and buy popcorn, and he does indeed buy soda, and he doesn't just sneak in Werther's originals, that's good to know. That's good to know.
What I would love, and I'm so glad father and son listening to our podcast together because
Yes.
we're both suckers for that kind of stuff,
Oh, yes.
right?
Yes.
I don't know any red-blooded man who isn't a sucker for father and dad stuff.
Right. Right.
And I love that they're listening in tandem. What I would ask Chris's father, if this is something he'd be willing to do, and have full transparency here, mentioned the movies that he enjoyed the most so far this year, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
was Ticket to
So,
Paradise,
mm-hmm.
Man Called Otto, The Fablemans.
Mm-hmm.
If Chris's father, and he can dictate to his son if he would like to
Mm-hmm.
do that, um, give us an inventory of the concessions you purchased during these films,
Yes.
so that we know what's the are you getting the standard popcorn and soda? Are you getting a little sweet to the
Mm-hmm.
side there? Are
Mm-hmm.
you going full on like nachos or
Right.
pretzel bites? Like, what are you doing? Are you chowing down? Or are you going to a theater where you're getting a spaghetti dinner? Like,
Right.
full on
Right.
spaghetti dinner and a little bit of vino.
Right.
What is the situation here? Because you, sir, and I call you sir out of respect,
Mm-hmm.
could be a great case study
Mm-hmm.
for us and any other wanna be boys, wanna be girls, wanna be people
People.
who
Mm-hmm.
would be in that age range, the oldsters. We'd say what, over 55?
Well, the an oldster is anyone over basically 32. So these are the mega oldsters. 55 and up are mega oldsters.
Mega oldsters.
Yeah.
The mega oldsters. If you're listening, send us an inventory.
Yeah.
Date of the film, where you saw it, what the film was, what you bought, what you
Yeah.
consumed.
Yes. Yes. This would be helpful for us and then helpful for the studios and for the movie
Mm-hmm.
theaters if they knew what the mega oldsters were eating at the concessions. So,
Because that's going to get more movies for your age group made than anything else.
right, right,
If you're
right.
really packing it in, they want to know that.
Yes. Yes. If we could show that 55 and up, they're walking in and they're ordering a hot dog and nachos when they see a Man Called Otto, that's going to get Man 2 greenlit even faster.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is important information, and if you would be willing to share it, we will share it with our audience.
Yes. Yes. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris's dad. Make a case now that this is actually the new greatest generation.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that. And then we got another great email from Austin. And a lot of his email focuses on what Warner Brothers is doing with this Magic Mike opening, the low screen amount, the low promotion. And he does reference Austin in his email does reference wanna be oh boy Bill Brasky,
Mm.
and the fact that Bill Brasky tweeted, quote, "Why is one of the most cherished and revered studios in Hollywood acting like they need to be out on the street begging for spare change?" Wow. Damning stuff from Bill Brasky via this email from Austin. It's that kind of thing that when you get Bill Brasky on Twitter starting to compare Warner Brothers to a person begging for spare change, that's going to make big stars wary of working at Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And when that becomes the public perception of Warner Brothers Studio, you're going to have a hard time getting movie stars to want to make their films, to ply their trade at a place like that. Now,
Listen,
in the
if
end,
yeah.
in the end, Austin is very high on this opening weekend. He thinks Magic Mike 3 says, I think MM3 can pull out 15 mil for the weekend easy. And this is the kind of stuff you only get from Austin. He says, I quote, "Here's a really, really random comparison, but when thinking of the theater count issue, I keep coming back to 2012's Flight. That film opened in less than 1,900 theaters and still made 25 million in its opening. Look, that was 11 years ago and in a completely different environment. My point is, if you have an attractive looking product, people will seek it out." End quote. So Austin's high on this movie. He's got the faith, but then you got Bill Brasky out there comparing Warner Brothers to street urchins, and it's a mess. It's a
It's
mess.
and you know what? We've got that Oppenheimer Barbie showdown. If that is going to happen, if you look at something like Oppenheimer, which could have been Warner Brothers,
Right.
and if that thing comes out and it smashes Barbie, which I'm not saying that that's going to be what happens, but that's going to be a huge black eye for Warner
Mm-hmm.
Brothers.
Right, right, right.
Because who knows, Barbie, are they going to promote Barbie? Are they going to
Well,
put their money behind Barbie?
well,
Or is
Warner
that going to be
Brothers
one of
isn't.
those?
Warner
Warner
Brothers is
Brothers
not
is doing
Barbie.
Barbie. Yeah, it is.
I did not think that was the case, but we're both looking it up now in real time. I did not think that was. I mean, I know Oppenheimer is Universal.
Barbie is distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures.
Wow.
So,
Wowie, wow,
is
wow.
that teaser trailer for Barbie the only thing we're going to see? Are they going to
Wowie,
be so
wow,
broke
wow.
by then?
Wowie, wow. I mean, the only hope there is that with the Barbie movie, Warner
Mm-hmm.
Brothers is just stuck in some kind of deal with Mattel where they have to spend X amount on promotion, or
Mm-hmm.
Mattel just has them over a barrel. That is something I had been sleeping on. I for whatever reason did not think of Warner Brothers as the distributor for the Barbie movie, and that is starting to make me sick to my stomach. I think we've got to end this episode
Yeah,
because the
you're going to
fact that
throw up in a bucket.
Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach's Barbie movie is in the hands of David Zaslav's release proclivities. And that's what these are. These are proclivities that he has.
Maybe that'll get
That makes
17.
me sick.
Maybe that'll get 1,700 theaters, Pat.
All right, I'm starting to feel ill. I got to get to the wrap up of this episode. So email us at theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. We love getting your emails. We love reading them. And so email us at theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter. WannaBO intern Christopher is killing it on Twitter, on our social media. So follow us at the BO Boys Pod. Subscribe on YouTube. Smash that subscribe button down below. Smash the like, smash the subscribe. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. Write whatever you want in the review as long as it's 5 stars. I'm feeling sick. The Barbie movie is subject to David Zaslav's proclivities. Clayton, I got nothing left to say.
All right. I don't think there is anything left to say except for until next time.
Well, smash